I interrupt you for just a moment. I want to bring you again. We are getting at least a part of the verdict in the Martin Shkreli fraud trial. The jury has found Martin Shkreli guilty on 3 of the counts against him. Again, 3 of the counts. I believe there were 7. I'm working to confirm that. Securities fraud is one. He has been found guilty of securities fraud. That is one of the things that we're seeing. Conspiracy to commit securities fraud. That is one of the charges against him. So 3 counts. Martin Shkreli is guilty on 3 counts. There were more charges. One of the charges potentially would give Martin Shkreli some prison time, up to 20 years in prison, the more serious charges. But again, guilty on securities fraud. Again, that is one of the, we should say, just to be clear, one of the more serious charges against him. This case, again, was over 2 hedge funds that he had run. He basically was accused, just to be clear here, this had nothing to do with how he basically came to fame, if you will, over raising the price of a life-saving drug for AIDS patients. This case involved, and again, he was charged with securities fraud. This is a federal case, the government going after him for fraud because he ran these 2 hedge funds, and what they allege he was doing was taking money from the new funds and then pulling money from another pharmaceutical company that was also the CEO of. It was a kind of a reverse Ponzi scheme, if you will. So he was taking money from one, giving to the other, and then reporting returns, frankly, that weren't there. And that would back up, and I'm no lawyer, but that would back up the government's case that this was securities fraud. Now, Ben Brafman, who you see walking next to Martin Shkreli there, because Fox Business has been out there every day as we've been waiting for this jury. This is a 5-week trial, by the way. This thing's been going on for 5 weeks. I remember the judge had said 5, 6 weeks. Well, the judge was right in the case. But Ben Brafman had argued, look, these, and he actually had a couple of witnesses that were investors with Martin Shkreli in these funds. They didn't lose money, and that was true. But it looks like the jury didn't buy that argument. It looks like the jury said he still is guilty of, quote unquote, securities fraud, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, because what he did was basically illegal, cooking the books. Think of it that way. That is an illegal thing to do. You're breaking the law, and he has been found guilty. Martin Shkreli. One of the things that's been interesting as we have followed this case certainly is the demeanor of Shkreli in court. Now, his lawyer, even the judge at one point, had said that, the behavior of Ben Brafman's client, Martin Shkreli, was frankly a little odd in the courtroom, and the prosecution was using that. The things he was putting on Facebook, the things that he was tweeting out were sometimes odd. Some people describe him as, you hear words like autistic, somebody with Asperger's. I mean, all of this has been thrown around in a very active trial. I do want to bring in Tracee Carrasco. She is standing by outside of the Brooklyn Federal Courthouse to give us more details on the verdict. Tracee, what do you know?
Cheryl, it's been a quiet day up until right now. We haven't really heard anything from the jury. They brought a note to the judge saying they had reached a verdict. Now, I want to go down the counts with you, what we've got. Count 1, that was conspiracy to commit securities fraud. He was found not guilty. Count 2, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. He was also found not guilty. Count 3, securities fraud. He was found guilty. Count 4, conspiracy to commit securities fraud. Also found not guilty. Count 5, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, not guilty. Count 6, securities fraud, found guilty. Count 7, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, found not guilty. Count 8, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, found guilty. Now, we have heard that he could face up to 20 years in prison. He has pleaded not guilty. He denies all of these charges. Now, again, Martin Shkreli, the so-called pharma bro, known for being the CEO who hiked up those prices for the life-saving AIDS drug. Well, he's here. He's being charged with all of these counts for defrauding investors in this case, and we've been following this for several weeks now. We've been out here following the jury deliberations, and as I said, they've been quiet for most of the week. They had questions earlier in the week on, I believe it was Tuesday. They asked the judge to define fraudulent intent, so we weren't really sure what they were thinking at that point. But as we said, he has been found not guilty on several of the charges. We will bring you more info as we get it.